Hi hobby friends, this week let's ditch the air and get hairy. Last week I posted a video on what I called no fuss skins and a whole bunch of you guys watched it. Best first week for a video I've ever had. Thank you for that. But some viewers pointed out that I used an airbrush in the video. Now, I think airbrushes are well worth the investment and I will continue to use mine liberally. But I understand that some folk haven't taken the plunge yet, or they aren't in the right situation to get one. So I thought I'd have a bash at doing something along the lines of what I did in the last video, but without the airbrush. And we're starting out exactly the same way as we did last time, as you can see, with a base of purple on one head and a base of orange on the other. Let's run through the dark skin tone process from start to finish first. With the purples down, I grabbed some burnt sienna paint and laid down a very heavy dry brush, more of an overbrush really, since the brush is still pretty loaded up here. As I mentioned last week, a common mistake, for want of a better word, with painting dark skin tones is to use a brown that is too desaturated or not red enough. Burnt sienna is a fantastic initial layer for dark skin. With that down and the purple just peeking out in the very deepest recesses, I pulled out some blue, red and yellow. Now, I really love these fancy pants acrylic gouache artist paints, but don't think that if you don't have exactly these paints, this won't work. This is a method, not a recipe, and that's true for basically all of my videos. I used the blue thinned down to a heavy glaze consistency in the beard area, and the yellow to add a little sunniness to the top of the head. This is a classic portraiture methodology, and if the canvas painters can use it, so can we. The red is for the light-skinned guys, so don't worry about that just yet. And if the details of this method interest you, check out last week's airbrush version of this video where I go into a bit more detail on the theory. We want to get some fast, easy highlights on this guy now, so out comes the dry brush again and on goes a deepish pink brown. This colour would make a good shade colour on Caucasian skin and works great as a highlight on dark skins. I mixed mine from burnt sienna, red and a little yellow and white, but you might have a pre-mixed paint that'll do the job just as well. If you want to know more about mixing paints, I've started on a little Colour Theory 101 series recently, so get subbed to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of that. Time to bring this all together now, and the first paint for that job is Gulliman's Flesh Contrast Paint. A really healthy slathering of this all over will pull everything together and tone down some of the contrast between, for example, the pinky highlights and the blue chin. When that's done, it's oil time. Just a really simple wash of Quinacridone Magenta thinned down with mineral spirits, left to dry for about 10 to 15 minutes and then cleaned up gently with a cotton bud. Oil paints may be new to you, but I really recommend watching some tutorials on basic washes and giving them a go. It's a fantastic tool to have in your arsenal as a mini painter. And that's the skin bit done. Now let's take a look at that orange guy from the start. As before, after the prime, we're going to lay in some glazes of blue around the beard area, yellow on top of the head, and some red as well this time across the eyes and nose. Don't be frightened of things looking a bit wacky-do at this stage. We're just laying in some colour zones to influence what comes on top. When that's done, it's on to the dry brushing again, this time with some peach paint. Any medium light skin tone will do the job, of course. I reckon you probably want to go a little steadier and work up slightly slower than I did if you can afford the time, but in any case, when that layer is done and dry, we're going to add another layer of highlights by simply mixing in a little yellow and white into our existing peach tone. This is dry brushed on again, but obviously taking a little more care to focus on the top and front of the face so we sculpt out all those details. Just like our last guy, that gets washed over with Gulliman's Flesh, and then we add a little blood, so to speak, with that oil wash of Magenta again. While I clean that up, I just want to give a big shout out to my lovely and wonderful patrons, a truly supreme set of folk who help keep the lights on here at GRG Miniatures. You can join them in helping out by following the links below, where you'll also find a Discord server, social media thingamies, and a list of the paints I used. Let's get some non-fleshy bits blocked out on both these guys now. We're focusing on the skin today, so nothing fancy here, just some grey-black blocking out. This is the longest single step of the process, and altogether both heads clocked in at about 40 minutes of painting time all told, but that would come down quite a bit with some economy of scale if you did a whole bunch simultaneously. There's always a balance to be struck for me between time and results. So sure, there are faster ways to paint faces, and there are better looking ways to paint faces. I've certainly done plenty of the latter when working on more display level minis, but I'm always looking for efficient ways to get at least slightly better results than the old base and wash or slap chop style speed painting, without sinking hours and hours into the process. The tongues are done nice and simply with a bit of red and white mixed into our skin tone to get a soft pink color, and the eyes get done with a really light version of our skin tone. You want to avoid pure white as it will look garish, but mixing a little skin tone into white should get you a good look. The same goes for teeth. Pure white teeth will have your little chaps looking like washed out Hollywood stars that spent a little too long at the dentist. Alright, let's take a look at the results. Nice, plenty of rich tones and interesting transitions, but without any tricksy techniques or laborious layering, and without an airbrush. There is definitely more texture there than the airbrushed version, an effect that is multiplied insanely by my camera for some reason. But in the grim darkness of the far future, I doubt anyone but Gulliman has time to moisturize anyway. Let me know what you guys think down below. I do my best to get back to every question, and give that thumbs up a click if you got something out of my ramblings. Cheers, and I'll see you next time. And that's the skin done bit. What? Oh my god. What am I talking about? And that's the skin... And that's the skin bit done. Now, let's... That's the skin done bit. Ah! Okay, here we go.